Hi, is anyone out there? So this is the first time I've tried one of the live feed videos, and certainly for a reading. So it's definitely kind of the new world we're living in here, and it seems good in terms of like for poetry, at least if for nothing else. Okay, look, Michael Farrell. Yeah, okay. So we've got activity. Kane, nice to see you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for turning up. It feels like such a perfect kind of like, I don't know. This is metaphor for the entirety of what's going on at the moment, is kind of speaking into a screen without any kind of too much feedback, and like sending it out into the universe. It's been such a peculiar kind of, hi Kane, thank you. Such a peculiar kind of like couple of weeks. Like just a few weeks ago, we were living in Canada, and like in the space of like a few days, everyone at the museum I was working in kind of lost their jobs just about. And, you know, we're shooting back here and I'm still kind of working off site for this place. I mean, it's been such a crazy time, and it's, so, and here we are. So it's really nice to have the chance to, oh, hi, Jill, to have the chance to kind of share some work and read some poetry, and kind of catch up with some people, some of which I haven't seen for ages. I mean, we've just kind of flown back into Australia 2.5 weeks ago, and I just finished my quarantine period a few days ago. So there's this odd situation where we've kind of flown home after a couple of years overseas, and obviously we can't see anybody except for someone behind plexiglass who happens to be helping us out with our kind of groceries or what have you. And so all of these people who I love at the other end of the screen, who I'd love to be kind of running around Sydney and catching up with, obviously. We don't do that now. We don't touch anymore. It's much better if we don't see each other face to face. We can't even bump elbows. This is the world that we're inhabiting, and it's great because we're all going to be healthier. Anyway, it's nice to see people here. I appreciate it. And so we'll read some poetry, I guess. Cheers, everyone. It's kind of funny considering the world that we're living at the moment. Poetry has felt like a weird kind of luxury over the last little while, and you know, it's kind of weird and slightly ironic, because I suppose art becomes more important and more kind of vital and more central in a way when everyone's stuck in their living rooms, I suppose. But at the same time, it just feels like this slight luxury when we're faced with kind of the enormity of kind of science and, you know, realities of, you know, what viral particles do and what they are, and all of that kind of peculiar crap that we're all living with. So anyway, without further ado, let's start looking at some poems. I thought I'd start with a couple of new ones, and then move on to some work from Awake at the Wheel. Hi, Sherilyn. Thank you. All right, so the first one I'm going to start with is called At the Breakwater. It's a kind of, I guess, a ranty political poem, which, I mean, I guess, you know, yeah. Anyway, that's enough of an introduction. At the Breakwater. Rain again, like city streets, glass gutters, even the sky, such it is, all black, the trees, traffic, buildings, buses, hell, even the birds have turned to water, and now, hate tweeting till their beaks ache, offer avian assault, throwing down unholy judgment, all manner of filth and fury upon this sodden parliament. An incurable world of concrete steel, bitumen silverheads, the perfect sheen of impeccable tailored blue merino, and all of them sharpening their knives. Our shining lights, our beacons, the .com silver spoon trailing blood from the helm, even bluer than his tie, the ousted silverback boasting loud behind the rugby sheds where he's pouted long-armed for years. And now this sad jingle for Aussie-grown potatoes plays and plays and plays. So many of Cecil's young colonists, and all of them sharpening their knives. It's so easy when cruelty is bipartisan. You can stagger down the hill from the lakeside hotel, arm in arm, belting out Waltzing Matilda, to unzip at the Breakwater, above a pontoon of the floating poor, clinging to desperate rope, like this old penal colony with its union of jacks and crucis might ever launch a lifeboat. So that one's kind of about getting angry about Australia's treatment of refugees and generally the kind of the complete moral bankruptcy of neoliberal kind of politics. This one's, so I'm going to move to something a bit more fun. And this is called Byron Bay Song. This is about a particular experience where anyone who's driven through the hinterland and arrived at Byron or driven through the hinterland, you kind of exit the highway and you go up through these beautiful, lush, tropical, kind of the trees and all the leaves get thick, and there's this particular kind of point at which it seems like you're breaking from some of the arid, these kind of much drier regions of southern New South Wales into the tropics, and you kind of hit that moment coming off the highway, and then you drop down into Byron Bay, and it just feels like this, I don't know, there's something about Byron that there's this little bit of magic there in the air, and it's still there even though it's now turned into this kind of bourgeois paradise or something. But I still believe in Byron Bay. I'm sad, anyway, whatever it is. So this is called Byron Bay Song. Here on the Bobo beachside hills, the sun has turned too lazy to set. It must be the weed. Having passed that bloke in the half-height top hat, feathers tucked in the brim, up the narrows of the high tide sand, holding a joint as fat as your thumb. Not an ounce of tobacco. Kind of thing just happens on American TV, shows about surfing the perfect wave off Kale Reef on the California coast. Catching my eye, a grain of light says, take him at his word, and so we do, and damn, it's strong. And we don't even know how much until grinning farewell and dwindling up the beach, then sand in the foot flicks up, 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 to where the point turns hard south, jumps into trees, and open sea below makes a plaything of scale. And we two together, looping the trees to the lighthouse. Finger locked, we relish how, back later, in the room, we'll lick each other from head to toe and back again until we're ravenous, halfway ready to leap in the scrub. But it's then you spy that copy of Wolf, levered open on the timber bench, left its art perhaps, or its destiny pure and simple. The spine lovingly cracked like an unrestored masterpiece, cathedral ceiling from outside the holy city, except now we're out front of the gift shop cafe in Byron Bay, and there are magpies instead of pigeons. We had driven hard north, stopping before we hit Queens Land. Stop going up before it goes downhill, you said. Up at 4 a.m, a double shot long black, KFC from service stops, the dogs, of course, 3 of them slobbering and farting every mile from the mountains. And we're still traversing the curve of hinterland when this apparition, a lighthouse upon the rocks just so, and the sky, the sea, the canopy, all ablaze, that the book might find its ending, its beginning, our sapphire glowing blue irrepressible sparks in the back seat, and ocean everywhere, scattering photons through windshield dirt into the golden trees. As though life could be built from brightness alone, simple as sperm. Just the need to find a way, unseeing, but for this wild urge to be. All right, thank you. Thanks for the floating love. I haven't seen that before. It's kind of great. All right, so I thought I'd read a couple from Awake at the Wheel. I might start with, just because we're going with a theme, it seems, with the title poem, Awake at the Wheel. And I want to admit that Michael Farrell gave me this title because he's a fucking genius, of course. And it just fits so well. I just completely love the irony of it. So, and this one's about it's kind of about taking the caravan and going for a drive up through the Hunter, the upper Hunter, and driving past that enormous coal mine that's there. And, you know, the scale of it is this monstrous thing. And it happened just after I'd lost a friend who lives just near there. And so the whole kind of trip was kind of, you know, overwrought by this particular kind of loss. And so anyway, but I suppose it's about kind of coal mining, but also about driving caravans. Anyway, Awake at the Wheel. 1. Early morning, pale skin. You wake without coming to. Go about post-slumber production. Outside wit, a bucket. Hooking up the caravan to the back end of your hangover. You sprain a finger on the jockey wheel. Red sky at morn, she don't bode well before we hit the highway. 2. Driver north 9-fingered. You've got your phone but turned off the map. Let's see where the black tar leads us. Due north and Putty Road, skimming out the skirts of another small Federation tin shacker town, driving on into more, into less. Half-forgotten pubs, fringed in franchise, re-gentrified monarchy, finds the trans-fat Big Mac primary coloured birds of Middle Australia. Thin edge a country hedge. Pretty house. Nice mob. 3. Out through the ute-filled borderlands, now mining as money, and tiered truckloads of spoil circle the ring road to abject earth. Yellow gnats ride miniature from bitumen into heart. The heat hangs closer here, sun-baked, whole, white. Don't worry though, the drive-through does bitch and trade. It's just the ice epidemic, a meeting point of highways, a place to chase Sunday afternoon blues, snipping off your lids. 4. Round and round, Saturday night, a dirty business, working the rigs, arc welding, pissed from gourd, and eye bent and crystal meth, and who in hell can blame them? The radio is playing Joe Strummer, so you're belting out, Sharif don't like it, vape the roach jar, Sharif don't like it. The air a permanent dusk of swarming particulates on the scale of Exodus, where all falls short of the glory of Reinhardt. 5. The road goes on, but we have to stop. How we pull over lost. How we should have gone left at the turnoff. How we lost the aggregate, the rubble. And there's one less place for your iPhone to worry about. And still we're tracking the edge of open cut. And you're saying how the local is national, is intersect and incest. And that mountain of mine is going on and on like a set from Fury Road, almost B-grade. Its sublime monstrosity, a beauty of bulk, brilliant machines scrub desert skin, realizing a metric valley in static excavations until there's no place left to unhitch the van. Okay, working with the theme, we're going to go to the experience machine now. I guess this poem's about kind of hitting rock bottom in, I don't know, an existential sense or something, not wanting to sound too wanky about it, but kind of hitting the bottom and bouncing back up towards the top somehow. And getting something out of it. I don't know, like finding a way through in some respects, which is a good lesson for now, I suppose. Finding a way through it doesn't, has meaning. Okay, the experience machine. It's the first mistake when the gloom floats in, switching through the channels of late night television. That palindrome of W's, it only casts you down, no matter how bright lit. And lo, the ultra-sharp reflection of the LCD, what God provides as harvest, his curious judgment, seems most days more a test, or so you'd like to think. Something après testament style, having woken in a fugue in a motel room, edging the ocean, beneath the ruins, end of the end. The room is filled with humming objects, and despite customary domestic detail, peach bedspread, aforementioned white good hum, no minibar, but of course a Bible, you otherwise can't quite place it. It's not the night itself, achromatic others, more a problem of reference, self-citation, all the miracles of human intervention from prophets to apostate thumbs, shuttles to the moon, funnel into this, one dumb stroke of a well-thumbed newspaper, a feature on package holidays, poolside cocktails, plastic palm trees, because you deserve it, your chance to eat hearts on the beach. And the devil's book, what the world will have, whether they will or no, is jammed 1/4 history and 3/4 CNN. MH370 descends, Nietzsche's dead and Nozick's wrong, and Nitsky advertises plastic head shows. And Nitsky advertises plastic headbags on a chat show, and Christ knows the anesthesia is not going the distance. No matter what time you spend on mental state theories of well-being, sooner or later you've got to towel off, perch the side of that cracked tub, face the mirror. See? This whole day you've stared and stared, like the world's the sum of your own botched work. And what, any surprise, tonight you're snapped right off your pencil, emptied, utterly fucked out by it all, having woken as drift nets from news of the world, trawl the high seas of your cerebellum, and now nothing's left but bycatch. So why wouldn't you pass out to the beach, spend the night raving with a lunatic of a backpacker, a refugee from 60s rapture embedded with the graffiti, blowing great blunt hits, beckoning you over, streetlights pitched, pavilion gone, looming shadow of civilization crumbling beyond the wall, saying, I don't talk about nothing, man. I don't even read the paper. I took 'em device and dug 'em down 1 foot by 1'6", right? And pushed back the sand, man. That's what I did. And tonight of nights, this speaks to you a wisdom beyond compare. Swallow your words, bury yourself, drink it down to sand. And when you're good and baked, swim out past the breakers into that pitching black to float your lungs, indeterminate, a blob as blobs might be. And this is what you're thinking, yes? Launch yourself to the fates, sea of water boys, what weed sends in thin tentacles up from the deep. And if you're gifted back to sky, back to air, back to the heave of below and above, if you're gifted back to the cities, continents, back to the red lights of Campbell Parade, then ascending the reef and depth from the terrible mouth of Mariana, the angel trumpet, blaring stars, a word will shape that dark into the hallowed face of love. Shivering a little as the wind comes up, walking home, DNA of helix rounds and the downhung bark of eucalypts, sweeping the night trees, footpaths shifting knuckles, undersold bones of your feet, bare shanks, and all of it utterly foreign and particular. From headland to headland, the colour tuned an orgy of physics, savage indivisible hues. Meanwhile, you mutter solemn promises to a future self, to never read below the line, toss the brochure, turn out the lights, the JWs, the relatives, to never watch the credits. They run all night and say nothing you'll remember. Listen to the morning, you say, Listen to the light. Listen to the only creature talking pure sense, that magpie warbling gospels to a strangeness of coming day. And by such like landmarks might you navigate back unto the world, crash the sofa, TV off, newspapers burned, binned, and drifting into unconsciousness you figure, wallow a little if it takes you. But you didn't sell the world, and you don't have to buy it back. Although, hazily, you have been online shopping and waking some morning hence, you will find yourself in a motel room you'd recognize but vaguely. It is filled with humming objects, and through the window the Pacific exhales in rolling dumps. Thank you. Thank you for the floating emojis. All right. Has anyone got something to say out there? Do you want something slower, something faster? I was going to read a few kind of slower poems now. Anyone have any questions? Any comments? There's a heart. That's good. I'll take a heart. All right. I'll take some more then. All right. Okay, so I thought I'd move towards a couple of slower poems now. It's probably true of a lot of poets and a lot of artists, but all my work seems like utterly obsessed with death. And right now, obviously, that theme just kind of, compounds itself. So this one's called The Divine Art of Compost. It's dedicated in the book to Martin Harrison, Stuart Cook, and I suppose it comes from a lot of conversations I've shared with those two, fine poets and friends. And Stuart always objected, and I can say this now because it's going into posterity, that he felt like some kind of caricature in this poem to be gently lectured by the master. And I think that's probably a really valid criticism, Stu, and I have complete apology for everything that this poem represents in that context. But it does borrow some work from Stuart and from Martin, and kind of riff that through the poem. So, The Divine Art of Compost. The master twisted a length of moustache along his gnarled finger, gently regarding the pupil, this bald, bearded, serious young man. Plastic lever arm contraptions, alien hatched polymer barrels have no place in the divine art of compost. Certain tenets are adhered to, certain matters of form. The emptiness between heart and lung, to turn the sod, share the life of warm earth, birds, critters, each fullness and each vacancy of nomad bush, that all organic matter is but food for smaller things, that time is your friend. Likewise, to rake and sow practices the quiet art of slowness, of leaf and stem, of alluvial underdark roots alone can see, to gather and return, to compose a city from the mound, bodies which build and inhabit, bodies which lie beneath. And the palm to his shoulder, which is to say, you will become a wise old man of the forest. Your beard shall be long to your knees. Early morning, that blue wren, heavy frost, arms hung windless, black bark curled on white ground, gold coins hung to bloodwoods, perches on the grape, drops nimble to weightless, to snatch a carapace of writhing life from the pile, flits off through the banksia and heath. Following her, a highborn chatter of parrots, augury of crow. Steam from the belly's mound lifts lush thermal sweat to their faces, a sumptuous chemistry of season and decay, the air its benediction. They turn together, bow for the sun. It begins with leaching water, the thirst to simpler forms, that all organic matter is but life for smaller things, that time is your friend, bodies which build and inhabit, bodies which lie beneath. Yeah, it's really funny reading that poem now because it was written before Martin died and Martin Harrison died, and it was kind of written as a poem about, weirdly, kind of about friendship and the strange conversations that you have as, with friends. And, I had this odd conversation with the poet Martin Harrison, who was talking about, like, he was talking about how he didn't want to be known as someone who just kind of got obsessed with composting and said, well, oh, you compost like that, do you? Well, for me, I like to, spread a little bit more lime, and then, and then I get the ash and put it on the side. And I don't want to engage it, but he kind of loved those conversations at the same time. So there's this kind of odd disjunct between the innocence which spurned the poem or spawned the poem, and then, like, I kind of see the title now and some of the riffs that are going on there, and all of the images that are in my head are all to do with kind of Hart Island and these kind of lines of mass graves, outside New York, and it's that's kind of the world we're living in at the moment. All right, so I'll do another death poem, and then we'll move somewhere else, perhaps. All right. This is not so much a death poem as just a kind of growing old poem, maybe. All right, to dust. Perhaps you walk down the western slope in dying light, watching the old dog, still running yet, chasing the ricochet buzz of blowflies, trace of fire in low sun. You look to the metal seam of riverline, hills falling one beneath the next, and the dust, thin spirits calling up to heaven, and think, well, of history, of happiness, of what else it is you might have found down there, beyond the gate's rust, in the coming night of the bushland's dark parchment. That one's, I guess, I'd devote to a dog. Can you devote a poem to a dog in a certain way? I mean, it comes out of an experience of being in the wonderful kind of, on an escarpment property of my wonderful friend, Amber Jackson, and her mum, Zoe Jackson, up kind of inland from Port Macquarie. And we had this amazing dog who just died about a year ago, and it totally broke my heart, Leroy. And, just having him just kind of run like crazy. Dogs, who are, he grew up in the city, and city dogs, when they get to the country, they just, most of them anyway, they just run like mad. They're just the happiest dog you've ever seen in your life. And so that one's kind of oddly a poem dedicated to a dog. I didn't dedicate it to the dog because you can't, I don't know, can you really dedicate a poem to a dog? And certainly not the first poem of a poetry manuscript. So I don't know. I mean, I certainly read some poetry books and they're so heavy with dedications, and some of the dedications are so obscure that, but maybe I could have got away with a dog. Please tell me. Make a comment. Tell me if I should have just devoted it to the dog. All right. So we are moving towards the end here. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, actually, I'd like to read this one. This one I had my friend Sam Wagon Watson in mind when I was writing, and I didn't devote it to him because, mostly because of shyness, I suppose. But it was a lot of the poems in this book are, shortly after Martin died, I guess, and there's or not a lot of them, but there's a theme there, and Sam was really close to Martin, and he kind of threads through some of my thinking to do with Martin's death around that time. So anyway, this one's called Wollombi. Arriving sudden, down Goannatal curves, a stone yard of shipwrecks, pearls in the trees, a chain gang of scarecrows nourishing the sward, are done by Sophie Jane. Yango to Wollombi, meeting of the waters. Imagine, uncle, the black silent feet, passing afore, the white blaze wind, the lake's dull wax, the shining silver eyes, cattle in the rut, as iron turns to rust. All right. So we're nearly through. I don't know where to go from here. We've kind of travelled through a whole bunch of. Sherilyn, oh, you like that one? Thank you. That's nice to see. We've travelled through a lot of death. Should we go to some? We should go to some sex actually, because the last section of the book is all of the sex poems. It's like, I mean, my interest in poetry is it's more or less kind of, literature, sex, drugs, death, and the order just seems to kind of shift back and forward. Michael Farrell. Thank you. Here's another death poem, because it's like, it seems about right. Il faut être toujours ivre starts with that wonderful quote from Rimbaud, one must be forever drunken. It's called The Bitumen Sticks. And I love that quote, because it's like, I mean, it's Rimbaud, so he's a totally depraved poet and revolutionary and everything else, but he's obviously a man who likes enjoying himself. So there's a very deliberate and explicit aspect to the drunkenness, but it's also about how you lose yourself in time and you can't just face the enormity of existence, just bald face and just splat against it day by day, and not be kind of, you've got to get drunk on what it is to be alive, and the joy, the pleasures of everyday existence. And I kind of see that as what Rimbaud was about. And anyway, so The Bitumen Sticks, but it's also kind of fitting because it's about Oxford Street, and I'm back home. So here we go. The hardest working man in the Pantheon, Sharon ferries only kebabs now, demands his obol from the walking dead, staggering the Oxford Strip. Tabbouleh and tahini on pitta, easy on the hummus. Having so discarded the curving scythe for bent aluminum tongs, he claims no further loyalties, future or past, and carves ununionized through skewerings of meat his new electric blade. So, you can't stop progress. That's what it all means. A quick slide to the end of days, old men and apples. The morning harvests such tentative light to be a promissory note toward all endings. Here being the world washed grey, here a dying earth. Of course, it's nothing so dire. Cafe Faulkner's a stroll down the road. It's open, and the coffee's good, and those widening gyres can yet be vaulted with a few unsteady steps. This is only the ancient mythology's departed, not facts but meanings, not detail but the map. Doesn't it all look the same to you? Isn't that sun finally pushing Homeric fingers through Rosie's winter foliage, pinked, yellow, russets like the jaundice of chemo, revolving yet amongst the heavenly spheres, same tangent, same star, only heavens changed. And here we are, Olympic Gyros, 6 a.m, posters on the wall of the crumbling Acropolis, tourists milling throughout the grease spots, absent as ghosts. Such being the risks of late night revelry, get off the bus and you might just end up here, searching out a few coins lost amongst the lint, locked in some deep throat on the bitumen sticks. So it's 410 if you're lucky, and if not. Okay, Sherilyn's put in a request for Alhambra. All right, thank you. So I think I might have performed this one just once before. It's an unusual poem to read, so thanks, Sherilyn. So this is about, I don't know if anyone's been to a bullfight out there, but we've gone just once when we were in Spain, and it's really profound and difficult. And I'm a fully fledged carnivore. Like, the thicker the steak, the harder I can sear the fat, and but so I kind of accept that there's this kind of way in which death and my own relationship with the world have this intimate relationship, and I don't see a way out of that, to be honest, ethically. There are certain kind of ethical positions that are much better, and kind of being fully fledged carnivore, it's, as well as just kind of driving an SUV, are kind of unacceptable ethical positions, and yet here we are. But at the same time, going and seeing a bullfight, and there's this moment when the first bull dies where this guy kind of, they picked it horribly and the thing was bleeding. It was really traumatic, and Tara and I were looking at each other and just about losing it. And then this guy comes in and just stabs it behind the spine, and the thing just slumps. And the sense of, I don't know, I just feel like all of the breath just left me. It was really unusual and horrible, but at the same time, kind of profound to accept your place in things or something. I don't know. Anyway, Alhambra. The pierced wall, the winding stone, Andalusia, Alamar, not always shades. La muleteer circles the glistening snout to draw, as by invisible string, a perfect trumpeted ballet, and then plunging sword of the matador de toro, the plunging sword of the matador de toro, air in currents and blades del pana, yours lumbers, slabbed neck, globbed, gored like a Goya painting, and we the granite stands sipping cerveza on leather, as such weight of flesh pulls him down in cheers. O bow, O neck, le corazon, this fortress of eyed rock, within these horns an invitation from the wall says come, says pasar, says grenadines se delate de la muerta a la Alhambra. All right. Thank you for that request. How are we doing for time? I don't know if this is just going to kind of randomly end. What's that I'm drinking? Oh, this is a Four Pines Brewing. Jay? It's a pale ale. We've been living in North America for a while, and like my taste for beer has totally been transformed by just how great the microbrew scene is there. Like all of these like tiny little breweries, and they're all producing these things that taste like kind of fruit juice with hops, and it's like fantastic. For those of you who don't know, my dad's a winemaker, and I'm an enthusiastic imbiber, I suppose. And so like I'm really loving what they're doing with like these Stuart. Nice to see you, Stu. I'm really loving what they're doing with these kind of like the micro brews and how they can just get these really like incredible diversity of flavors. And Australia hasn't got there yet in terms of, but there's great stuff coming out. Now, Young Henry's actually, I just had their pale ale the other day, and I think it's a lot better than this actually. But yeah, which is like a Sydney microbrew, and it's fantastic, and it's got those tropical notes as well, like that kind of tropically orange juicy thing, and it's like, but at the same time it's subtle. And anyway, we're talking about beer. I told you I was going to talk about beer. All right. So, any requests? Michael's laughing. Stuart, you don't deserve anything except for good stuff, Stu. Oh, Louise, hi. Gosh, nice to talk to you. Nice to see you here. All right. So I guess the next poem to read here is The Song of the Earth. This is another kind of Martin poem. André Gide, once dead, turns Lazarus a century past, repens La Nourriture Terrestre, drinking cognac on Darlinghurst Road. He works through spring and into summer, not shifting tables, shadows swallowing every stroke in heat and traffic, the Sanskrit flow of his hand. Lips a half pout wet with drink and thinking, and everywhere the air thinned of memories sense, the revenants competing for noise on this corner, this small slice of presence, their purgatory. You see, it's not the filament touch of it, a bulbous sheen of cognac strewn to windshields, sunglasses, a passing siren's brightness, another afternoon announcing God in a clash of brass percussion, and certainly not our bodies, which bloat and thin and eat themselves, even as we watch. Not symbols, but words, that he wants the light to be permanent, which is the only game in town. And yes, Mont Saint-Michel is a mirage on a tide, cracked earthen spires on blue tidal sheen. But then, so is Victoria Street and Liverpool, all the city's vibrant squalor. So he sits at Le Petit Crème, writing light into time in the ebb and flow of traffic, sun portioning day in a scrawl of pavement, the fading lines of his skin. All right. That's probably about our time. Thank you all so much for joining in. Oh, there's a whole bunch of comments here I've missed. Any final thoughts or requests? I can see it starting to fade as I watch. It's like seeing mortality kind of coming upon us. It's like flashing 43 minutes. It's fantastic. And thank you. So I guess we're fading here. Maybe there's one. Actually, that's it. I did promise some sex poems. Let's at least. Okay, I'll finish with like just a couple of sex poems. If it's not going to just completely die on me. It's not exactly a sex poem, but it's close enough. Romeo and Juliet in 3D. This one's for Tara, my wife. Hyde Park and you've got me, reciting Shakespeare to lampposts, threatening vegetables with rhyme. You could turn boxcars to jellyfish, tankers on a dime, but by some ex machina you stop beneath the night shine of this Moreton Bay fig under a wildfire moon. Come here, take off the hat, hook us both back to some 1940s vision of respectability and slap me hard as you got. I promise I'll take it and like it. It's not being kinky, nor mad for Jesus. You just slay me. Bread to water, water wine, star-crossed poison, will swallow the lot and bend how it lays, a happy dagger for a timeless end. So push me down, sail me back up the blood, reach to the lungs and kiss me dead. All right, one last sex poem to finish. This one's called Love Box. Okay. I've never read this one before. Anyway, before. Love Box. I tickle your love box. You write me secret letters. And outside our little caravan, the sky grows red-orange fire, grows larger than the afterplace, grows larger than the ending. So thank you very much for joining me on this live stream. It's been a real pleasure and an honor to be able to kind of communicate indirectly and somewhat strangely from our living room. But lots of love to you all. I hope you're all healthy and well and looking after each other and, you know, doing everything you have to do to stay healthy in the kind of strange world that we're all living in now. And, you know, look after each other and lots of love. Okay, bye-bye.